Hello, dear students. I'm Dr. Bandana Balchandani, Department of English, DAV PG College, Varanasi. This is second part of the lecture based on Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Mrs. Dalloway is a great modern novel by Virginia Woolf. It is a complex, impressive, compelling novel. It is Virginia Woolf's masterpiece, a richly inventive novel. It follows a day in the life of the upper class Clarissa Dalloway in post First World War England. It describes Clarissa, her thoughts, impressions, and all her friends in a special party in 1923. It is a novel on modernism with its use of planes, cars, and movies, a strong signs of modernity. A successful use of modern techniques, avant-garde. Avant-garde means new and experimental ideas and methods. Here she has used stream of consciousness, pre-indirect discourse, cinematic techniques, symbolism, cubism. So various issues, various topics and various techniques she has used here and given it a perfection. With perfection she has used it. So it has been called one of the few genuine innovations in the history of the novel. It was published in 1925. Originally the novel was been called as the Hours. She gave the name of this name to the manuscript of Mrs. Dalloway. Hours because the chiming of Big Ben here reminds us every time the hour. It has been evolved from two short stories called Mrs. Dalloway of Bond Street and The Unfinished, the Prime Minister. Michael Cunningham's novel The Hours echoes Mrs. Dalloway. Woolf on Mrs. Dalloway. In August of 1923, Virginia Woolf wrote in her diary, "I should say a good deal about the hours and my discovery, how I dig out beautiful caves behind my characters." Caves is related with the human psyche, human mind, consciousness, where lying buried various thoughts, impressions. I think that gives exactly what I want: humanity, humor, depth. The idea is that the caves shall connect and each comes to daylight at the present moment. Various techniques and genre of the novels: modernist, formalist, feminist, which I will do the discussion in upcoming discussion. Setting time: Wednesday in mid-June 1923. Setting place: mostly it is London, England, but there are flashbacks to a summer at Burton, the town where Clarissa lived with her parents in the early 1890s when she was 18 years old. Narrator: anonymous. The omniscient narrator is a commenting voice who knows everything about the characters. This voice appears occasionally among the subjective thoughts of characters. Point of view: between first and third person narrative. Point of view changes constantly, often shifting from one character's stream of consciousness, subjective interior thoughts, to another's within a single paragraph. There are 20 characters, but few of them are important. Major characters moves in and out of point of view. Of 20 characters, it is divided into parts. It seems that divided into parts, but she has not used the chapters. The novel has been printed in one piece from beginning till end. Why she has done this thing? Here, the aim of Woolf is to depict mind's reality, the inner psyche. And mind, there is nothing very properly structured, segmented in the minds. She seems to imitate the way in which the mind works. Words poetic, elusive and emotional. Tone: the narrator is against the oppression of the human. Sometimes the mood is humorous, but an underlying sadness is always present. It is a collage, a mosaic portrait. It pieces together bits of Mrs. Dalloway's past and bits of Mrs. Dalloway present, and thoughts and impressions of Mrs. Dalloway and of other characters. What is the beauty of the text? The beauty is all are interwoven explicitly. It is a unique novel. It intervenes two seemingly unconnected storylines during the day. One is of Clarissa Dalloway and the another is Septimus. The outer facade has been represented by Clarissa Dalloway. Its glitter, richness, material achievement, hypocrisy, snobbery, all are presented through the life of Clarissa and her circle, and its neurosis, boredom, agony, that has been represented by Septimus. Through Clarissa and Septimus, Wolf creates a dichotomy of two emotionally repressed lives with different outcomes, but remain very similar. They are two facets of the same society, with a glittering body but a troubled soul. The novel traces the actions, memories, and thoughts of these two very different people who are very close geographically but who never meet. Plot: on a day in June, Clarissa Dalloway prepares for her party. So it is based on party. She walks through London. Various characters, they are been shown their love for walking. Peter and Elizabeth Dalloway, because of their craze, their love for walking, this novel has been also termed as a flannel novel. She reminiscences about her youth at Burton and her romance with Peter Walsh, an intense relationship with Sally Seton. Clarissa's story is parallel with that of Septimus Smith and his wife Lucrezia. Septimus kills himself. She comes to know about this in her party, and then she leaves the party. She goes away to reflect upon her life. When she comes to know about Septimus' suicide in her party, initially she didn't like this idea, why the people are talking about death. But immediately she goes to her attic room and contemplates about various issues related with life. She admires Septimus, who, to preserve purity of his happiness, committed suicide. Rising action. Clarissa spends the day organizing a party that will bring people together. With her double, Septimus Warren Smith eventually commits suicide due to the social pressures that oppress his soul. Climax. At her party, Clarissa goes to a small room to contemplate Septimus' suicide. She identifies with him and is glad he did it, believing that he preserved his soul. Following action, Clarissa returns to her party and is viewed from the outside. We do not know whether she will change due to her moment of clarity, but we do know that she will endure. Virginia Woolf, she has shown her more concern for the characters. For her, the characters are integral or the important part of the novels. The aim of Woolf is to render the inner reality and psyche of her characters, so she has paid more attention in the delineation of characters. As in a paper read at Cambridge in 1924 entitled Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Brown, she said, "I believe that all novels deal with character and that it is to express character that the form of the novel has been evolved. There are many characters, few of them are major. Clarissa Dalloway, she is the protagonist, you can say heroine, married to an MP named Richard. The novelist depicts her enthusiasm, her love for beauty, her liveliness, even her fear for death, for aging, for old age. All these are brought very explicitly. She is beloved by Peter Walsh, an old friend. She rejected him, who was a fiery suitor, because he was too demanding, very assertive, dominating. Peter acts as a foil to Richard, who is stable, generous, rather simple. unlike calm Richard, Peter is like a storm, thundering and crashing. Peter has been shown constantly fiddling with a pocket knife, that is symbolizing his masculinity. She rejected Peter and married to Richard Dalloway. Richard Dalloway is at times indifferent, at times haughty. Both the characters, Peter Walsh and Richard, they fail to understand the real spirit, the real need of Clarissa. Sally Seton, old friend of Clarissa. Clarissa thinks she was in love with Sally Seton. Through Sally Seton, the patriarchal ideas, conventional notions are debunked. She is demanding for equal right. Hugh Whitbread, old friend of Clarissa, he is despised by Peter and Sally as stock, pompous English gentlemen. Elizabeth Dalloway, Clarissa and Richard's only child, she is experimenting with radical ideas. So unconventional radical ideas are being presented through Sally Seton, Elizabeth and Peter Walsh. Then we have Sir William Bradshaw and Dr. Holmes. They are famous psychiatrists. They fail to understand the plight of Septimus. Miss Kilman, she is Elizabeth's history teacher. Her love and religiosity is not the product of pure feelings but escapism from her anger and hatred. So her love is possessive and her religiosity corrupt. She wanted to possess the soul of Elizabeth Dalloway. That's why Clarissa Dalloway is very angry at her. She hates her behaviors, her ways, or especially she thinks that Kilman wants to separate the mother and the daughter. The another storyline is of Septimus Warren Smith and his Italian wife Lucrezia Rizia Smith, her loneliness. Septimus is a war veteran, suffers from shell shock or post-traumatic stress disorder. He is deeply traumatized by remembering the death of his friend. The inner facade of Western civilization after First World War has been represented through Septimus. If outer is by Clarissa, he struggles with the after effects of the war, hearing voices and feeling that life has little meaning. The war made him a nervous wreck, mentally disturbed. His friend Evans was killed before his own eyes in the war. The world seems to him very painful and horrible. The person who was once full of energy and bravery is now full of fear and anxiety. His wife Rizia also suffers greatly due to his mental illness. She is young and beautiful, but she is tied to a man who shouts time and again, "I will kill myself." There are various issues, preoccupation and concerns of the novelist in the novel. David Dalloway is saying that, quote, Mrs. Dalloway is the novel of time, death and personality and the relation of the three to each other. So he's pointing out the novel is focusing time, death and personality. June Bennett remarks that Mrs. Dalloway is neither the story of Clarissa Dalloway nor of Septimus Smith, but of human life itself. It presents the picture of life with all colors and variety. At a deeper level, the novel deals with the universal theme of life itself. There are various issues. The important one is mental illness. Wolf critique of treatment of mentally ill in post-war Britain. The psychologists or psychiatrists like Holmes and Bradshaw, they are insensitive, they are tactless, they fail to understand the plight and agony of the patient. Wolf criticizes such inept handling of mental illness. Dr. Bradshaw diagnoses a lack of proportion in Septimus. He plans to separate Septimus from his wife Lucrezia. His treatment irritates Septimus and he committed suicide. World War first and how it has changed social order, how it created an effect on the psyche of the people, how the people felt traumatized by this war that has been shown through the Killman and Septimus, the evil effect of war. The humane heart of Virginia Woolf could not stand horrors and futility of war. Often she is criticizing it in her novels. Life for her, with its all beauty, more admirable, more important. She is also dealing various other issues like existential angst. She's commenting on man's isolation, alienation, how the man, they are making a kind of a decision at a point of a time and being suffered by it. So this has also been dealt in the novel. Feminism, a very subtle but feminist tone can be felt from the very beginning. Woolf has articulated women's concern. Women's characters are presented explicitly and authentically. Women's helplessness, their unconventional approach, their private circle, all are brought forth. The novel primarily focuses on Clarissa Dalloway, her multifaceted identity. She is a wife, beloved, mother, mistress, but more than that, as a human being. Clarissa's feminine qualities and resistance to these qualities has also been shown. Clarissa's role is a circumscribed one. She runs a household and is a hostess for Richard. She lives a pampered and content life, but she has chosen this life rather than the more exciting and ramshackle one offered by Peter, as it allows her some freedom to breathe. The title of the book points to the loss of Clarissa's identity right away due to her gender. Clarissa is not known as herself, but only by her husband's last name, Mrs. Dalloway. She has a well-bred, comfortable life. She gives party, but inside she feels a kind of insecurity. Homosexuality, a very bold and daring topic to speak during the time of Virginia Woolf. She supported these views in her room of one's own also. The love of woman for a woman. Clarissa and Septimus both have emotionally, if not physically, intimate relationship with friends of the same sex. Clarissa feels about women as men feel and remembers the defining kiss with Sally Seton. Septimus' relationship with Evans and has homosexual overtones. Tension between the self and social contact is also been presented. Self is related with the private thought, private life, and social context is related with public life. Woolf combines the private and public life of the protagonist by seamlessly switching from Clarissa's private thoughts to her mundane activity. Overwhelming presence of the passing of time, the impending fate of death for each of the characters is felt throughout the novel. Though much of the novel's action consists of preparation for a seemingly frivolous party, that is constant undercurrent to the characters' thoughts and action. The obvious example of this is Septimus, who suffers from mental illness and ends up killing himself. Peter Wall's fears growing old and dying, and so tries to pretend he is young and invincible by living in fantasies and pursuing younger women. Clarissa repeatedly quotes from Shakespeare's play Symbolism, a passage about the comfort of death. Fear no more the heat of the sun, nor the furious winter's rage. Middle-aged Clarissa has experienced the death of her father, mother and sister and has left the war, and she has grown to believe that living even one day is dangerous. Even Virginia Woolf has also suffered the death of her dear ones, so she has this deadly feelings with this inevitable aspect of life, that is death. The novel is symbolical in the sense that various characters represent different sections of society. Dominating love is presented by Peter, religious fanaticism is presented by Killman, a medical treatment has been presented by Dr. Holmes and William Bradshaw. Those who fail to support and soothe the traumatized souls, they are not able to help Septimus, rather created problem. So the characters, they are symbolic, they are presenting one or the other aspects. Dalloway's symbolizes the pomp and show, outer glitter of the civilization that is suffering from spiritual barrenness. Miss Kelman is the symbol of the corrupting influence of religion on humans. It is made clear that religion also has failed to bring the peace of mind. No agency can support in this world to the people who are suffering from alienation or loneliness. Neither the dominating love presented by Peter nor affectionate love presented by Richard Dalloway or religious fanaticism presented by Miss Kilman or even the doctors like Dr. Holmes and William Bradshaw. The people have to suffer. Suffering is the main aspect of the life. Maybe that is she wants to show is Dr. Holmes and William Bradshaw, who represent the evils of modern medical profession. Peter Walsh is a symbolic of knowledge and spirit of adventure. Peter Walsh and Sally Seton represent the new ideas which stand against the orthodox views. They always look forward to challenge certain conventions of the society. Major conflict. Clarissa and other characters try to preserve their souls and communicate in an oppressive and fragmented post-World War I England. Virginia Woolf's concern in Mrs. Dalloway is to explore our real selves, the depths of feeling, the emotion that remain submerged in our mind, like hatred, despair, joy, sensitive, so on. In this presentation, I have discussed characters, plot, symbol, other aspect. The next lecture will be on the techniques which has been used by Virginia Woolf. Till then, goodbye. Thank you.